This is a Sports Catastrophe production. Hey there, Heather, ho there. It's Jeff Cutter, and welcome you to another Sports Catastrophe on this day. And on this day, September the 14th, 1994, it was done. Baseball was done. No postseason, no World Series for the second time in baseball history. And basically, it started a chain reaction in the sporting world. So I know I did a video last year on the thing August 12th, 1994, when the strike happened. But this is, the fact that on this day, baseball stayed locked out. It could have been different. It could have been the simple fact that, you know, it might have had some chances. Baseball, I think, had a few chances to agree, and that they would have to replay the year quickly. However, because of greed, both on the players and owner sides, it was done. Baseball was done, and lots of teams would get bit hard. As I mentioned last year, the six division. This was the first year of the three division format in each league. So we had six divisions, the three division winners, and the best records that did not win the division, aka the wild card, would meet in a best of five showdown in the first round, then best of seven in the LCS and World Series, like it normally is. All six divisions had an interesting story. How about the New York Yankees in 1994? They were the best team in the American League, and they were back. They had struggled throughout the 1980s. They did a rebuild. George Steinbrenner was booted for 2 years. And actually, within those 2 years, the Yankees organization kept their young stars, their young core, and didn't want Steinbrenner to trade them away. That was the smart thing, because you got like Jorge Posada, Derek Jeter, Bernie Williams, Mo Rivera, even I guess like Andy Pettitte up in the system. And they would probably be traded for star talent to try to get into the playoffs. The Yankees were close in 93. They actually gave the Blue Jays a run for their money, but the Jays stayed steadfast. But yeah, the Yankees' core was looking good, and Don Mattingly was looking to make the playoffs for the first time in his career. Donnie Baseball. I mean, there would be a silver lining as 95 the Yankees made the playoffs, but blew a 2-0 LDS lead to the Mariners. It didn't help that the last 3 games of that LDS was in Seattle instead of at least one game being back at New York, like it normally was. The format for that was that one team got to host the first few games, and then the next 3 games were hosted by the next team. Were hosted by, I guess, a better team, I don't know. But anyway, yeah. Maybe the Yankees would not have won Game 5 against the Yankees. Anyhow, the Yankees did go to the World Series in 96 and win it and become a dynasty. But Mattingly retired after 95 and never got to be part of the 96 team that won the title. In the Central, Cleveland and the White Sox were fighting tooth and nail for the division, and I believe Cleveland had the lead by a game over the White Sox. It was no doubt that whoever was runner-up in that race would get the wild card. So, anyway, it helped Cleveland out. The next year, they were a powerhouse. 100 wins, 44 losses in that shortened season. They should have won the World Series, but Atlanta took them out. And the White Sox, well, they were middling along in the mid-90s. Early 2000s, they showed some promise. And what about the AL West? Yep, the one that had Texas, California, a.k.a. Anaheim, Seattle, and Muskogee, that's Oakland. As I said before, the division, when the strike happened, Texas had 10 games below 500. They actually would have won the division, and the fact is Texas would have been probably 4th or 5th in any other division. It was crazy. I mean, Texas came to age a couple years ago. And then all of a sudden, you know, Seattle, well, they ended up winning the division in '95 in a wild card game, in a one-game playoff against the Angels, who had faltered down the stretch in '95. Oakland was just one guy, Mark McGuire, and everything else. The NL West saw the Dodgers get robbed. The Dodgers did come back in '95 to win the NL West, but they went through a period of time. I can't remember how long it was that the Dodgers didn't win a playoff series for a while, but yeah. The NL Central saw Cincy, I think it was. Yeah, Cincy was looking good. St. Louis, I think, and Houston were trying to challenge the Reds. But yeah, Cincy. Well, Cincy got back in '95. They won the division. They were the odds-on favorite to probably win the NL title, but Atlanta stopped them cold. And let's not forget the NL East. The 5-team division that had Atlanta, Florida, Montreal, the Mets, and the Phillies. The Marlins, Mets, and Phillies were never in it. It was down to Montreal and Toronto, but Atlanta. So Montreal and Atlanta were duking out. Atlanta winning the NL West in a massive comeback to deny the San Francisco Giants a chance for the postseason. Atlanta then would get upset in the NLCS by the Phillies, who then lost to the Jays. As is, Atlanta looked good. They started pitching. They had Maddox, they had Smokes, they had Avery, they had Glavine. They thought they had Pete Smith as a good fifth man in the rotation, but no. Atlanta looked good. And everyone thought Atlanta was going to take over the East, and they should have been in the East because why were they in the West? Georgia is close to the Atlantic Ocean, not the Pacific Ocean. It's akin to the Arizona Cardinals at the time being in the NFC East, even though the Arizona is way out towards California. Anyway, here, there. Atlanta's pitching was smooth, but for some reason, the Montreal Expos, who kind of struggled to start '94, despite having a great run in '92 and '93, falling to the eventual NL opponent in the World Series, happened. The Expos in '92 '93, they were close, but as the pundit said, they ran out of time. They couldn't get Pittsburgh and they couldn't get Philadelphia in those 2 years. Which is ironic because Montreal was also in division runs in '79 and '80, and those were the two teams, Pittsburgh and Philly. I digress though. Montreal went on a massive roll. They were hitting up everything hard. And in a 4-game series, was it 4 or was it 3? I can't remember. In June 1994, they showed the Braves and the TBS audience what they were made of, and Montreal took over the lead from Atlanta. There was no doubt that Atlanta was going to probably, at worst, be the wild card. And Montreal, too. Montreal would make the playoffs for the second time in their history. Unfortunately, the only other time they did it was '81 when baseball went to a split season because they struck in June. But the '94 Expos were the biggest problem in the strike. But not, they were the team that took it the hardest, that had the biggest downfall after it. Because the '94 strike cost them a playoff spot, which would have given them massive revenue from CBC/CTV/GSN. I don't know how the TV rights in Canada were going to be. Because I know CBC did the Yankees-Mariners series. Because all I remember was on YouTube watching Yankees-Mariners game 2 and then seeing the little CBC bug in the bottom right. So you knew something was up. So, anyway. Yeah, Montreal would have gotten lots of revenue and all that. Well, I know CTV did the playoffs for the Blue Jays, so yeah, it would have been nice. But unfortunately, that didn't come to fruition, and then that insult to injury. They lose Ken Hill back to St. Louis. They lose Marquise Grissom to Atlanta. They lose Who else did they lose? Oh yeah, they traded. Yeah, they got rid of John Wetland to the Yankees, and Larry Walker left in free agency for Colorado, saying that Montreal didn't even give him an offer. Montreal screwed up. They could have kept one or two guys of those four. I mean, yeah, young Pedro Martinez in the wings. So yeah, maybe Ken Hill was a little expandable. I don't think Marcus Grissom was expandable. Maybe John Wetland was expandable because Mel Rojas was coming up strong. But Larry Walker, bleh. Why would you get rid of Grissom and Walker? You could have signed those two. But that's my personal opinion. Larry Walker, the worst part of '95 was that all four of those guys seemed to do well in their new digs. Larry Walker led Colorado to the playoffs in their third season, but they fell to the Atlanta Braves, led by Marcus Grissom, who won the World Series with the Braves. Ken Hill would not be the same. I think he was part of St. Louis in '96 when they went to the playoffs. But anyway, John Wetland would be the closer the Yankees really needed before Mo Rivera came along. Well, Mo Rivera was a starter, mind you. So yeah, the Expos fell down hard. They had a few playoff runs, but their team just went downhill. The consortium sold to Jeffrey Loria, who made no secret that he was probably wanting to get the Expos out of Montreal, despite him saying stuff to the contrary. But yeah, Loria made some terrible moves, especially with the media outlets, making games be broadcast over the internet instead of being on the radio or TV, which was pathetic. Yes, we. They were forced to take games in Puerto Rico that actually sold more tickets than Expo games, had higher average attendance than Expo games. The new downtown stadium was a no-go because the government wouldn't put up their part of the money, the provincial government. I mean, yeah, closing hospitals is bad and all that. That I get, but can't you just settle something? Anything? And let's not forget that CSer, you'll know what I mean, Bud Selig. I'm not going to say it on the video. Not doing enough. He wanted Montreal gone. He was going to contract Montreal and Minnesota at the end of the 2002 season. But because Minnesota caused the stink and won an injunction, Selig couldn't cut just Montreal. He needed an even number. Then Montreal was on its last legs, went to Washington in 2005, and a lot of people thought that, Washington's playoff failures prior to 2019 were justification, were karma for screwing over the city of Montreal. But of course, they won the World Series in 2019, pissing me off in the process. So yeah, the strike would go on till April 1995 when Sonia Sotomayor, who's now in the Supreme Court, a Supreme Court justice, stopped the baseball strike and all that. It also didn't help matters about the strike keeping happening. Is there would be replacement players. The Blue Jays would have been forced to play their home games in a different part of the U.S. because in Ontario, there was a labor law against it, replacements. That's why you don't get strike breakers in Ontario nowadays, even. And Michael Jordan didn't want to cross the picket line, so he went back to basketball. So baseball got hurt a little bit. But yeah, life went on. The band played, and Montreal just got fucked over. You don't know how pissed off I am right now, even talking about this. But it is what it is. Anyway, I'm Jeff Diamond. I do.